Exorcist, and welcome to the Lair of the Film Exorcist. Tonight I will be reviewing A Bug's Life. Flick is an inventive ant who's always messing things up for his colony. His latest misshape was destroying the food stores that were supposed to be used to pay off the grasshopper, Hopper. Now, the strong-arming insect is demanding that the ants gather double the food or face annihilation. To avert disaster, Flick goes on a journey to recruit fighters to defend the colony. When he meets a band of high-flying circus insects, he thinks he's found his salvation. Now, judging by your the last video, which you guys didn't really like, when we did The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I decided, let's take a break. Let's give Cinema Witch a bit of time to figure out her work schedule with her job kind of screwing her over, forcing her to work nights so she can't come and record for a while. So I decided to ask some help from her and another friend of mine named Quentin, who they both suggested A Bug's Life. One of Pixar's first movies, came right after Toy Story, and it's apparently based on Aesop's fable, The Ant and the Grasshopper, which I just learned the whole story a few minutes ago, which turns out it's a grasshopper dances throughout the fall and the spring and the summer instead of gathering the food that he needs to survive the winter, and in doing so he has no food, while the ant, or ants in some versions, spent most of their time gathering food for the winter. So when the grasshopper comes and asks the ants for food, the ants make fun of him and tell him to essentially screw off and go dance out the winter because of his laziness. Essentially, the story is, don't be lazy, get shit done, or you'll freeze to death, apparently. And that actually kind of shows in this movie. They definitely took that story to heart, with Flick and his ant colony and Hopper and his grasshopper colony. And surprisingly, despite this being made right after the first Toy Story in like the 90s, it's actually a pretty funny movie. I mean, I'm enjoying as I'm watching this, I'm enjoying the very inventive animation style of the past. Like, compared to Toy Story, this is actually really good. Like, they improved from Toy Story, and this helped them lead into Toy Story 2 and improve on that. This movie is really inventive, like adding all different bugs, creating a city of all man-made objects that you see in everyday lives, like food containers, cups, boxes, all these things, and it makes up one big city where, on the other side, there's the grasshoppers who use leaves and branches and essentially to them what trees are, but are really just grain stalks as their homes. They also make these very inventive anthills with these lights, and we have Flick, who is honestly the most inventive character that I've seen in a Pixar movie near the beginning. Like, he spends most of his time building these things. He's pretty much the Tony Stark of the ant world, and everybody beats him up for it, attacks him, because he's not like them. He's special, in a way. And he works hard, tries to improve the colony, and they don't like it, and also, he's a bit of a klutz, let's be honest. Like, he can do all these amazing things, but he's kind of that nerdy character. He's similar to Velma, like she's the smartest character in Scooby-Doo, but she's also clumsy as hell and always losing her glasses. That's Flick in this. Like, he creates this amazing invention that cuts down the stalks and helps you get the grain out faster by taking down the entire stalk and not having to climb up. And later on, he accidentally uses this invention to destroy the grasshopper's food supply, which, yeah, like, not a good moment for Flick in this movie. But then again, he finds the circus bugs. There's Francis the ladybug, Heimlich the caterpillar, who honestly is my favorite character because he's German, and they play on this joke very heavily. Like, every sentence he has is about food. They kind of play on the stereotype of Germans like food, and they're fat, and his accent is really cool in this movie. There's also Slim the walking stick, who is just as funny. Manny the praying mantis, Gypsy the gypsy moth. No, sorry guys, she's not a monarch butterfly. I was wrong. She's a gypsy moth. There's Rosie the black widow. There's Tuck and Roll, which I was right, are pill bugs. And then there's Dim, the rhinoceros beetle. And then there's the jerk, P.T. Flea, who's actually played by John Ratzenberger, a really funny actor. And they make up the quote-unquote warrior bugs who help help the ants fight off the grasshoppers and create a very creative bird. Like, this whole movie relies on the idea of there's always a bigger fish, to quote Qui-Gon Jinn in episode 1. Because you've got the ants who, ants. They gather together they are stronger, where the grasshoppers are already strong as an individual, but they're kind of like the bigger fish. And then you have the much worse one, which is the bird, which everyone's afraid of. The bird almost kills our heroes early on in the middle of the film, actually. And they get this idea that, I think Hopper's afraid of a bird, so let's create a bird. P.T. Flea comes, ruins the plan, destroys the bird, and Hopper almost kills Flick, until Hopper gets taken up by the bird after Flick uses his head and leads them to the bird's nest, which strangely is very close to the anthill, and nobody knew about this. Like, nobody knows the geography of the area. I get the ants that they've lived on that quote-unquote island for a long time, but you'd think the grasshoppers would know about the bird in the area. Like, that's bad planning on your part, Hopper. So the bird takes Hopper up and feeds it to her babies, and I think we get the idea of Hopper was torn apart by these little chicks. We have Pixar's most violent death in a movie. Like, Pixar went hard on this. Like, so many dark jokes. The villain dies in the end in the most gruesome way during that time for a kid's movie. And just, wow. I think there was also a joke in there about Rosie talking about her husband and how she killed him because that's what a Black Widow does. Also, I find it creative that each character has like a little quirk. Like, Manny and Gypsy are like a magic act. Uh, Heimlich, I can't really be sure what he is, but he's supposed to be a clown. Slim is technically supposed to be a prop in the circus slash clown. Uh, Black Widow is the quote unquote tamer of Dim, the rhinoceros bug, who's supposed to be a ferocious beast like a lion in the circus. And Tuck and Roll are supposed to be living cannonballs. And apparently they're from Hungary, and that's why throughout this movie they have like sign language where you can't understand what the hell they're saying. So they use sign language, and as Flick's trying to explain to them why he found them, it's just like you can kind of understand in Hungarian they're saying, "What the hell is this guy talking about? Do you understand what he's saying?" Like, they are hilarious in this movie, these pill bugs. We also have the fun part played by Hopper's younger brother, who is apparently called Molt, which, ouch, Mama Grasshopper, why are you calling your son Molt? And yet you called your son Hopper, like, very inventive names, I guess? But also, he joins the circus at the end of the movie, and you also kind of feel bad because Hopper's always beating on this guy. Like, it's not his fault, he's dim-witted, and he's at least trying to help the colony. Like, he suggested, why go back if it's gonna rain? And Hopper, of course, doesn't listen, goes off, and almost gets most of the grasshoppers killed. And gets himself killed by a bird. I also kind of feel bad for that one joke in this where it's I think it was a cricket, and it's like, it's got a sign and it says, "A child pulled my wings off." Like, okay, so we know humans are in this world, but what the fuck? Like, how do you get away with that in a kid's movie? I also like the small little relationship between Flick and Princess Anna. Like, Flick's trying to impress her because he cares about her, and she finds him a bit of a goofball and a nuisance because that's how she's been conditioned to feel towards him by the rest of the colony. You also have the Queen, who literally is just called the Queen, played by Phyllis Diller, who, she's, like, supposed to be the straight woman in this movie, and she doesn't trust Flick at first, and, like, nobody believes in Flick in this movie, and I think it's been mentioned many times that this movie is essentially a liar reveal story, like, the same old trope of, oh, he lies about what he does, and then the entire colony finds out later, and then he redeems himself and saves them. And then they hail him as a hero. Like, I also like Dot in this movie. Like, she's the optimistic character. She wants to learn how to fly. She's essentially the only person that believes in Flick in this movie. Like, after Flick gives her the rock talk near the beginning of the movie, it comes back in the end, and she essentially does the same thing to him later on when he's down, and it plays another very funny part later on in the movie where the circus bugs gift a rock to the ants, or just to Princess Anna, because they've got the idea that it's an ant thing to gift someone a rock, and the ants think it's a circus thing to give a rock to someone. And it's an overarching joke in this, and it's got like the it plays off the idea of you need three to for an act to work, and it's very funny. But overall, yeah, I think this movie still holds up. I really like the art style. I really like the design of the bird and the uh, civilizations between the city and the ant colony. I also like the little area for the grasshoppers, which is essentially a bar, um, where two grasshoppers die by being crushed by a bunch of seeds. Um, Honestly, if there were no other Pixar movies like Up or Encanto or anything else, I would definitely say that this was my favorite. Like, it's in the top 5 at least, because despite it being the one of the oldest ones next to Toy Story, its story still holds up, and a lot of the jokes are still funny. I also like the Randy Newman song at the end. It's the time of your life, so live it well. Which is a very quotable saying. And it was a brilliant song to add to this, like with the beginning about a little bug. Other than that, yeah. This is a really good Pixar movie, and it shows that even when Pixar was coming into their craft, they were just as good. And even now that they've aged, this movie has literally aged pretty well. So yeah, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. And have a great night, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And click the little notification bell for more videos. Don't forget to have the time of your life and live it well. Have a great night, guys.